by a lady by the name of Elizabeth Warren. The Lord smiled on us, and she ran for the Senate in Massachusetts. But Richard Cordray, former Attorney General in Ohio, was picked to head the CFPB. So the president made recess appointments. All right? Now you think back, okay, well, maybe the Senate was out of recess for several months, and maybe the president can make an argument that even though we've never had a CFPB before, it's so important to the fabric of our republic that we can't wait until the Senate reconvenes. Maybe you can make that argument. The problem with making that argument is the Senate never adjourned. They picked up this tactic when there was a president by the name of Bush. They didn't want him making any recess appointments. So the way they kept him from making recess appointments was they would gavel in the Senate each day. It's called a pro forma session. Nobody was around, but the Senate decides when they adjourn. The president doesn't decide when they adjourn, the Senate does. And they decided they weren't adjourning. So the President Bush got to make no recess appointments because Harry Reid pulled that trick. Well, some of us were paying attention. So the House and the Senate decided we're not going to consent to adjournment. We're going to have pro forma sessions which will defeat the recess appointments. And the president did it anyway. I don't mean to send all y'all to YouTube, but we had a hearing on it. We had a hearing on it. We had several hearings on it. And a constitutional law professor from a law school that escapes me right now essentially agreed that if the Senate takes a lunch break or a nap, which has been known to happen from time to time, Tim Scott lowered the average age by 20 years when he got there, but a lunch break, if the president says you're not available to give advice and consent on my nominee and I'm gonna make a recess appointment, why not? Why not? He did it when they were in what he called recess for 3 days. If 3 days is enough, how about 3 hours? So we went to court. The House does not have standing to challenge that. The Senate did not have, well, the Senate had standing, but Harry Reid runs the Senate. So you had to get a group that was impacted by an NLRB ruling. And they decided to hire a lawyer. Some of y'all may remember his name. Miguel Estrada. You ever heard of him?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He should have been on the D.C. Court of Appeals and by now would be on the United States Supreme Court, but they filibustered him and kept him from coming up for a vote, even though there were 55 votes to confirm him. They never let his name come up. He's a brilliant appellate attorney, and they hired him, and it was a 3-0 decision, and the D.C. Court of Appeals, including one of the judges, was Karen LaCraft Henderson from right here in South Carolina. And what's the first thing they do after the judge goes the way they don't want them to?
They nullify.
No,
They post the names of the presidents that appointed them. They said they were all 3 Republican judges. Have you ever seen them do that when something goes their way? 3-0. They say they're going to appeal it, but I'll bet you they do not, because they'll lose in the Supreme Court.
Wasn't always also in that, and you said it, you made the statement that the opening has to come during that recess also.
That's what the Constitution says. That's not what the Supreme Court has said. That is an unsettled question. But let's look at the chronology of what happened. The president made one of his NLRB appointments on December the 17th. You with me? December the 17th. The vacancy had existed for more than 4 months. Okay? More than 4 months, but yet this position is so indispensable to the fabric of our republic that he needs to make a recess appointment. But he left it vacant for 4 months. You know when he made his recess appointment? January the 3rd. So from December the 17th to January the 3rd was too long for him to wait. The Senate, who controls the calendar of the Senate? Who's in power? How many hearings did he set on their confirmation?
None.
How many hearings did he set for the NLRB and Richard Cordray? None. So he gets to set no hearings, no confirmation process, and the president can wait about 2 weeks after he sends a name and says, "Oop, y'all hadn't done your job yet, I'm going to make a recess appointment." And thank the Lord the D.C. Court of Appeals said you're wrong, and it was 3-0.
Trey, this one's about presidential executive power, and this has been a question and a trend line that's interested me for a number of years. The question came from the floor. It said, does Congress plan to do anything about the executive orders issued in the last few years? Will there be any bills introduced to legislate, nullify, or repeal any of these quote-unquote laws made by the president in his first 4 years? Can you maybe give me an overview of how the executive order system evolved, if that's an abuse of power by the president?
I'll try to, Paul. You know, again, both parties have made use of executive orders. And the way executive orders are supposed to be used, I want you to imagine an executive we have here in Spartanburg County. Chuck Wright is a member of the executive branch. He's a sheriff. I want you to imagine that Sheriff Wright is going to send a memo to his department that because of limited resources, we are going to focus most of our energies on pursuing cocaine cases above a certain drug amount. Because of limited resources, I'm the chief executive, I'm directing you, as members of the executive branch who work for me, spend your resources on this. How many of you think he cannot send that memo to his staff? He can. Now, how many of you think he can send a memo that says, our Congress won't get off its behind and make a certain drug illegal? And I'm tired of seeing it and I'm tired of dealing with it. So I want you to go arrest everyone who has this certain drug, even though the General Assembly and Congress have never acted. How many of you think he can do that? He can't. So he can instruct within the realm of his, you know, look at the president's executive orders after Newtown. If you've read them, some of them you scratch your head and say, why are you not already doing that? Why did you wait until Newtown to tell your federal law enforcement agencies to cooperate with one another? That is not outside the realm of the power of a chief executive. When you start changing the law, when you start reinterpreting the law, and I'll give you an example of that. Janet Napolitano issued a memo under the theory of an executive order, Paul, that since we're closing in on an election last summer, we're not going to remove or have removal hearings for the following categories of illegal immigrants. No hearings. She called that prosecutorial discretion. Other people call it amnesty. Some people call it electioneering. There are limits, but Paul, I think we would have more credibility if we would challenge our own party. If we would say to a Republican president, if any of us live long enough to see another, if we would say to a member of our own party, you have exceeded your authority, I think that would carry even more weight. I've analyzed his executive orders. There are 2 of them that I would want us to have more hearings on. The others, I think, fall within the purview of telling executive branch entities, whether it be the Bureau or ATF or DEA, to do certain things which the chief executive, and that's what the president is, can do, just like your sheriff can tell his people. He can't change the law, but he can certainly encourage them within the parameters of his job. There are Executive orders have been around for what?
Ever.
Washington.
That was the
trend
first
is-
one.
It seems like there's more in recent years.
We actually counted them, because I get an email that there are more. I think there were more starting, not with the current president, but maybe with one before him or two before him. But I had at one point, if anybody wants it, I'll get you the number of which president or which presidents have issued the most number of executive orders.
And I'll be interested as to how many of those were administrative and how many are strategic or overreaching into the powers of the Congress.
Which will require an order-by-order analysis. And
Do you have a ballpark figure?
Sounds like a doctoral dissertation.
I'm putting you on the spot.
I'd be guessing, and it wouldn't be fair to you for me to guess, but I'll get you an educated answer.
All right, this is a question of the power of the federal courts we've been talking about a lot. Article 3, Section 1 of the Constitution establishes the judicial power of the United States and one Supreme Court and such inferior courts as the Congress may from time to time ordain and establish. Do you believe that Congress has the constitutional authority and responsibility to prevent what Thomas Jefferson referred to as judicial tyranny by following the advice of James Madison when he advised that we need a remedy for when even the judicial branch betrays us? I think you mentioned Article 3, Section 2, ability of Congress to limit the jurisdiction of the appellate jurisdiction of the courts. Is that the remedy you would advocate, or are there other remedies that you would advocate for judicial overreach?
Well, the big one is impeachment. In fact, I served with a federal judge who was impeached, but that did not prevent him from being elected to Congress. That's a fact.
The judiciary has standards.
You can impeach federal judges, you can limit the jurisdiction. Their pay is linked to Congress's, which means they're not going to get a pay raise for a long time. They're not happy about having their pay linked to Congress either. You know, I was in the federal system for 6 years. I think we're pretty fortunate in South Carolina, but the best way to correct judicial mistakes is before they happen. And to vet people. I used to have a conversation with Senator DeMette before he left to go to Heritage. Senator Graham is an attorney. Timmy Scott is not. The federal judges that our senators pick will far outlive and outlast the senators, and in some ways will have more of an impact on us than even a member of the United States Senate. So the best way to do it is to prevent the mistakes up front. There have been, I guess in the last 10 years, maybe 6 impeachments of federal judges. But the reality is you have to literally commit a felony to be impeached. And even then, it may not be a foregone conclusion. Impeaching judges for bad decisions, it hadn't been done. You mentioned Jefferson, I guess it was. I can't help but keep in mind that Hamilton worried that the judiciary would not be powerful enough. If Aaron Burr hadn't killed him and he was still around, I wonder what he would say now. I wonder what he would say. Yeah, they are not lacking in power and influence.
Congressman, we have to go leave in just a few minutes. I wanted to ask you something. You talked about opening the door. Well, I want to know what you think, since President Obama has been opening the door with executive orders that actually make law. The next president we have that is pro-life, he's opened the door to him, the president issuing an executive order restricting abortion. Do you have a comment on that?
Well, I think some of that's happened, especially with respect to foreign aid, hadn't it? What was it, the Mexico policy? You know, Artie, that's always the temptation, is when people do something we don't like, when we get back in power, we do it back to them. I would rather us get back to the way it should have been and start by Christina mentioned policing the executive branch. We tried with something called the REINS Act, which is regulatory relief, and it passed the House overwhelmingly. I'm not complaining because I signed up to run, but I'm telling you, it's really frustrating when you have a Senate controlled by Harry Reid. I mean, they're just nothing good. The REINS Act is a wonderful piece of legislation that will never see the light of day because it won't be voted on in the Senate. Could that happen? Yes. I would prefer. There's nothing more refreshing to me, Artie, than having someone acknowledge the restraints on their own power. When I was the DA, solicitors have the right to call whatever the case they want, whenever they want to call it. That's a huge power. For me to be able to call a case on you, because maybe I don't like your defense attorney, even though you were arrested a year ago, and I'm not going to call your case even though you were arrested 3 years ago because you're, you know, I like you, or maybe the media is more interested in yours. That's a huge power. And I got with Barry Barnett. By the way, y'all got the best solicitor in the state of South Carolina. Barry is fantastic. But I got with Barry and I said, you know what? We shouldn't have this power. We're going to give it to the judge. We gave it to Judge Roger Couch. You run the docket. History's not replete with instances of people ceding back power. Usually you got to take it from them. But it would be really refreshing to have a president, hopefully a Republican president, that acknowledges there are limits, constitutional limits, on what he can do. You would think being the leader of the free world would be enough, that you wouldn't have to take other people's power. But apparently it's not. So
I would argue against President, pro-life president doing that.
Good.
That would be wrong.
Good. I agree. Good.
But anyway, Bill, did you
Just one question. What is the final remedy, if there is one, to things like a Congress that can't pass a budget which is constitutionally provided for? When they break the Constitution...
Statutorily.
That's true, okay. When they break these things and they do these things, what is our remedy other than, again, we go back to the where we started, I guess, with nullification. And when we get down to it, and we've talked about the sheriff's initiative, that when they come knocking on the door, we have a sheriff's department that stands in between us and them.
You know, we passed no budget, no pay. Chuck Schumer shocked all of us and said that they're going to pass a budget.
Did he give you a timetable?
Would you believe it if he had?
No.
He's too busy working on gun control. Here's the frustrating part. Paul has, both times I've been there, Paul has passed a budget. And budgets are nothing more than your priorities. This is how you're going to spend a limited amount of money. When you don't have to pass a budget, then you can run on a slogan, like a balanced approach, or fairness for all. That's beautiful. It's irresistible. It's just not a budget. So the fact that the Senate is going to pass a budget this year, or they say they are, because we pass no budget, no pay. You don't pass a budget, which, by the way, who knows, trivia question, which amendment is implicated by no budget, no pay? Anybody have a copy of the Constitution?
You can't change it within this Congress. It has
The
to-
last one. The last one.
The 27th Amendment says compensation for members of Congress cannot be varied.
within your term.
Yeah.
So, did we break the Constitution by
Yeah.
passing no budget, no pay?
Yeah.
Yes.
Here's why I tell you we didn't. Because the money's being escrowed. And if we wanted, hear me out, if we wanted to change the way we're paid from once a month to twice a month, does that violate the Constitution?
No.
If we wanted to change it from once a month to once a quarter, does that violate the Constitution? Then how is escrowing it violating the Constitution? You're going to get your money. It just might be the last day of session if you don't pass a budget. Guess what? It worked. They're going to pass one.
Well, I've got a question. Which one of them up there is really worried about if they're going to get paid the
In
next
the House,
paycheck?
a lot of them.
Paycheck.
In the Senate, they're all millionaires except him. In the House, there are a lot of them worried about it.
But again, then you have the Senate. You're back to the same old thing. We have a Senate that is.
Look, the
run
House
amok.
ain't perfect. I am not about to tell you the House is
Right,
perfect.
but
We
the
got
Senate-
our own challenges.
All you gotta do